Whistleblowers, they're targeting being the victims of bullying and harassment, matters which have been brought directly to your attention by a number of serving whistleblowers, and at the heart of which is the Garda Commissioner. And in relation to your point to Deputy Wallace, it is normal procedure in any organisation when somebody is the subject of a major inquiry or serious allegations that they would be suspended. After all, that is the position that Dave Taylor himself is in. But in any case, you've been asked to meet with serving whistleblowers, Minister, and here I'm wondering what you're prepared to do in that regard.
Well, the first point I would make, Deputy Daly, is that recent years have seen very substantial changes in the way and the manner in which whistleblowers and protected disclosures can be addressed. The Protected Disclosure Act of 2014, the fact that members of Garda Síochána can now make disclosures to GSOC, who have full statutory powers to examine them, the new protected disclosure policy that's in Garda Síochána, and that recently, as you know, I referred the policy that the Gardaí have in relation to whistleblowing. I referred that recently to the Policing Authority and asked them to examine that policy and would they recommend any other changes in relation to it. They came back and said yes, there were some changes, and we're going to make sure that those are implemented, and the Commissioner has committed to implementing them. I am aware of the cases referred to by you, Deputy. I would again make the point that all of us in this House must be very careful in discussing individual cases of whistleblowing, because protection for whistleblowers, rightly, it prioritises the confidence and the confidentiality of the process, which is central to it being efficient. And, you may be free to make whatever comments that you wish in relation to particular cases. I really do believe that I would be open to criticism if I came in here and started commenting on individual cases of whistleblowers, or indeed if I was to give the details of particular cases. And that's all the more so when cases have been the subject of very extensive legal correspondence, which, I do not believe it would be appropriate for me to comment on publicly. I don't believe I can come in here and respond to legal correspondence by way of parliamentary question. In an effort to be helpful to you, though, Deputy, I would say that I would have grave reservations about meeting with persons involved in making protected disclosures while their cases are subject to an examination or investigation by the Garda Síochána Ombudsman Commission. Now, this doesn't, of course, reflect in any way on the persons themselves, but arises because of the imperative not to be seen to be interfering in any way with such examinations or investigations. There's nothing, of course, to prevent persons setting out in correspondence to me any concerns which they have, and they also have the right, and this is very important to note, they have the right to, of course, make further disclosures if they feel there's further evidence to the Garda Síochána Ombudsman, and that's the body with the statutory powers where appropriate can investigate independently any such disclosures.
I actually don't want to be in here raising these matters in the House, Minister. I'd like you to do your job, which is to hold the Commissioner to account and to see that justice is done in terms of protecting whistleblowers. Now, you've told us that there's a process there, a process in place. You will be aware that the Justice Committee unanimously adopted a report which was published yesterday which highlighted the shortcomings in Garda oversight, one of which is the shortcomings in terms of GSOC. Now, it's very convenient to you to say, we can't be talking about this here. GSOC is dealing with the matter. Nothing that GSOC is dealing with is relevant to the correspondence you have received, which is very detailed information about current bullying and harassment of current serving members of Garda Síochána and the Commissioner's role in that. Now, you cannot delegate that to GSOC. You cannot say you won't meet people who have gone before GSOC when you've met other people in that situation. It's an excuse, and I don't know how long you think you can run from this, but there are serious issues. The Justice Committee yesterday made the point that whistleblowers should be protected, that those who violate their rights should be disciplined, and you're the person who has the ability to do that. So I'd ask you again to meet with these people.
I will be examining the report of the Justice Committee. I've just received it yesterday, and I'll certainly be examining the recommendations there. But, Deputy, I think you are aware that what you're asking me to do is legally very difficult, and yet you persist in, asking the question. I mean, you're the very person who would rightly, and I agree with you, argue for independent oversight of Garda Síochána and against any sort of politicised policing. You're the very person who would argue for that. And on the other hand, you want me as Minister to intervene in circumstances that are being examined by an independent body. I don't believe that your position makes sense. Again and again, I've told you that allegations that arrive on my desk are appropriately handled. You want me to inappropriately handle them because it would be inappropriate for me to intervene in an independent process. You can't have it both ways. I mean, you want me to interfere when it suits, and then I think you would be the first to criticise me if I took inappropriate action that didn't suit. I mean, I want to ensure that whistleblowers have a confidence in coming forward. I want to ensure that all allegations in whatever organisation, including, of course, in Garda Síochána, that people have the confidence to come forward and make their complaints and disclose the information, and that they have the confidence in the process that's there to support them. And I've taken every action to ensure that that is what happens.
Final supplementary from Deputy Daly.
Minister, the legislation that you brought forward means that you're the only one who can hold the Garda Commissioner to account. It's your legislation that's meant that GSOC can't do the job that you're telling us they're empowered to do. They haven't the power to discipline senior officers. You're aware in the cases that you refer that are currently before GSOC that the person responsible for overseeing the disciplinary action of one senior officer is the very Assistant Commissioner who was at the centre of an allegation of leaking information to that very officer who is now under review at the moment. Now, you told this House before that you had requested of the Commissioner a detailed and urgent report to be furnished in relation to the manner in which the two, and one in particular, whistleblower that we're talking about here was being treated by Garda Síochána. Where is that report? It was an urgent report, you told us a number of months ago. Can this House see it? Can the whistleblower at the heart of the matter see this information as well? Because it's all very convenient to hide behind bodies that you know aren't really coming up with the answers. But meanwhile, the reality on the ground for people that you say you want to encourage to come forward are people who are out of work, coming up to Christmas, one of them for a period of over 2 years, when all they want to do is do their job and be accurate members and active members of Garda Síochána.
Thank you, Deputy Tanis. Your final response.
Well, Deputy, I have to say to you that, inevitably, the information that you're putting on the floor of the House is partial information. And, neither you nor I have the full facts in relation to the situations that you're describing. The body that we've set up to look at the full facts is GSOC. In the meantime, clearly, we've stronger legislation. And I have also, and the Department of Justice, obviously in their regular meetings with the Garda Commissioner, would have raised the issue of how whistleblowers are being dealt with within the force, as indeed have the Police Authority looked at the policy. You also have Transparency Ireland, or Transparency International, working with Garda Síochána to make sure that the policies are working. Now, my job is to put in place... But that's what you say. You have particular partial information in relation to certain circumstances that has been given to you and you're putting on the floor of the House here. But inevitably it is partial. But I want to assure you that every piece of correspondence that has landed on my desk in relation to various people who are whistleblowers, or whether it's from their legal representatives or anywhere else, that information has been brought to the appropriate place. I've dealt with it appropriately. I, like you, want to make sure that whistleblowers are protected and that they do not suffer any consequences for being whistleblowers in Garda Síochána.
And we're moving on to question number 8 to the name of Deputy Kelleher, who I know will observe the time.
I'd just like to ask the